Good evening to all, and welcome to the first live session of the course Managerial Economics. Trust you all are doing fine in the difficult time. Let me introduce to my course TA and Mr. Rai Sheikh and Miss Namita Singh, and they are the people who are attending you in the dashboard, trying to solve all your queries, trying to provide you the resources so that you can do the course peacefully, or they are trying to support you so that it can be smooth when you are doing this course. Let me quickly summarize. I guess because we have already completed 2 modules and demand forecasting is the last topic in second module, and then we'll move to production and cost module. Let me quickly summarize what have been discussed till now in the course. First, we started with understanding what is managerial economics. In that context, getting from the root, what is economics, what is the difference between microeconomics and the macroeconomics, then how managerial economics are typically in the decision makings, how microeconomics concept, tools, and different principles gets used. Through that, we need to learn the managerial economics. Then we saw that what are the different domain of the business and how they are related to the basic microeconomics. Then we moved into understanding what are the different concepts or the basic assumptions that is being used in the different concept when we study about the managerial economic. So we started with 2 basic assumptions. One is economic rationality and second one is the ceteris paribus. And beyond that, we moved to understand what is resources, typically the factor of production, what is scarcity, what is opportunity cost, because opportunity cost is also one of the important parameter when you take a decision. Then also we discuss about the marginal analysis, typically how when we think of that how long we should continue the economic activity, we try to see that what are the benefits we are getting and what are the costs we are incurring from that. Then we moved into incremental analysis, and then also we try to understand what are the different types of profits, like economic profit, accounting profit, mostly in the context of explicit cost and the implicit cost. And then from there we move to understand typically how incentives are being used in the decision making. Like take the example of a moral hazard situation, or take the example of the adverse selection situation, that how decision makers, when they have the information or from better or the worse from the other side, how typically they behave, this that we have seen in the incentive. Then also we got into understanding the basic understanding of basic variables, like what are dependent, what are independent variable, what is exogenous, what is endogenous variable, and also looking at that typically how these variables are being used, even for a simple understanding of a demand function, what is independent, what is independent, and to a situation when we're talking about the forecasting, because we know that these are the variables which influences demand. So this is how we typically capture these variables into the functional form or into the equation. So we have looked into the tool and techniques that is being used in the economic analysis, and from there we moved into the second module, that is demand and supply. So demand and supply, these are the 2 factors typically they work in the market mechanism, one from the consumer perspective and second one from the producer perspective. So we try to cover the understanding what is being called as demand, what is law of demand, then what are the different factors which influences the law of demand, what leads to change in the demand. Sometimes the change is just from one point to another point in the demand curve, and sometimes the changes shift the demand curve entirely to the right or entirely to the left. So what are the price, what are the non-price determinant of the demand which leads to the changes. Then we got into the supply side, understanding producers, like how supply is being decided based on the prices and the market equilibrium. Then we moved into understanding like how the demand force and supply forces brings the equilibrium in the market, and what are the different situations which leads to change in the equilibrium situation. Then the second part of this model, we discuss about the consumer perspective, about looking into how they make a demand, or what are the different factors based on that when they make the demand. The understanding over here is that whenever the consumer consume anything, they get some amount of the utility. And from there, the entire consumer behavior or the background or the framework of the entire consumer behavior starts. Whether we can quantify the utility, that is through the cardinal analysis, and whether we cannot quantify the utility, but we can rank them based on the preferences. So that we have seen through the relationship between the total utility, marginal utility, then the indifference curve approach. Then through indifference curve approach, we looked into the consumer equilibrium, and consumer equilibrium is nothing but where the consumer maximizes their utility looking at what are the income constant. Then also we have seen that whenever there is a change in the price, typically it is not only a price effect, it also brings the changes in the income and the substitution effect. So we have seen how price effect is the combination of the income effect and the substitution effect. Then also we looked into the consumer surplus, because many a time it happens that there is a difference between what we are willing to pay for a product and what actually we pay. So this experience is beautifully captured by a concept called microeconomics, that is called consumer surplus. And typically consumer surplus changes whenever there is a change in the market price. Then we moved into understanding that lot of the decision making also needed that how do you forecast the demand. The forecasting is needed because you need to know that how much you are going to produce, how much resources you are going to use, and for that we have used the tool which is called as the demand forecasting. What is going on at this point of time in your course, possibly whatever the queries you get in the demand forecasting, we can take it in the second live session, or also you can put it in the dashboard. Before getting into the query, there are 1 or 2 points what I want to make about the course. The first point is that this course is recorded 6 years back. So you'll find some of the examples possibly may not be applicable in that present day context. Like a typical example, if you look at what is the impact of tax on the demand, and there I'm talking about two types of tax. One is sales tax and other is the excise tax. The more important situation now is that we have nothing called sales tax or the excise tax. It's about GST. But it's not that there is, the concept has changed. Only the example is that because at that point of time it was sales tax and the excise tax. Now it is more about GST tax, and who is paying, based on that burden will come to the either to the producer or to the consumer. And second point what I wanted to mention about this is that if you find that any point of time it is the estimation or the calculation is not being given enough explanation, if you find an error or if you find that something confusing, you can always put that into the dashboard. Our TA, they will try to incorporate that, and we can take that into the next live session, or whenever I'll meet through the live session, we can discuss, or we can explain it through the dashboard also. Now, I was just checking with my TAs because most of the question in last few weeks was related about your notes and also the PPTs. So our NPTEL team, they have already given the transcript for all the lectures in the dashboard. So that is kind of notes for the course, because all the lectures are being translated, and that is as a note for each of the lecture what is being presented through the PPT. And also about the PPT. So if you look at in the transcript, you'll find that the PPTs are being placed, but separately also if you need PPT, we'll also arrange that you can get through this PPT. We'll try to arrange this PPT. Then we started getting a few of the questions in the dashboard when we announced about the live class. Let me start with the question number 1. I don't know that who has raised this question, but the question goes like this: is it helpful for the PG students? Yes, it is helpful for the PG students. Mostly if you are trying to learn economics as the basic subject, this is not something the advanced concepts are being covered in this course. So this is more about understanding the basic economic concept of the microeconomics and how you apply them into the decision making. So one is concept, second one is the tools and techniques, and also third one is the different kind of principle those are being used. So if you are trying to learn basic economics, basic microeconomics, and how it is being used in the business, then typically it is helpful, because this is more from This entire course is more from BBA, MBA, and also the engineering students, those who are in the final year, typically take this course as one of their electives. So this is helpful for PG students as well. But I don't know which stream of PG you are talking about, but even if you are in MTech, still if you want to utilize some of the concept, like let's say into operations, let's say something about the forecasting, let's say something about efficiency studies in the industry, so this is the course that would be useful. Then okay. The second question is calculus derivative. There are a few, the question says that there is some calculus and derivative in the course. Is it very big part of the exam? Let me tell you that calculus derivative is needed to understand what is the impact of these variables on the specific variable what we're talking about. Let me just give you one example. Suppose we try to understand what is the value of, what is the impact of income on the quantity demanded, right? So typically we try to know that through this thing. So here, whenever, since we are talking about optimization at some point of time, because the basic objective for the economics is either we maximize the profit or we minimize the cost, because each economic agent, they try to optimize this. So some basic understanding of a first order derivative and second order derivative, if you have, that is enough for smoothly completing this course. Because we are just trying to say, suppose there is a value of the total cost, how do you find marginal cost? Because you just take a first order derivative of the marginal cost. Or if the value is total variable, how do you find the marginal variable? You just take a first order variable. Or when we discuss about the market structure, we'll talk about the first order derivative, second derivative. But if just you have little knowledge about the basic derivative, the first order and second order derivative, that is enough for go through the course. Then question number 5, each inferior good is subjective, and because sometimes it becomes the normal good, sometimes it becomes the inferior good. Yes, inferior good is always context specific. The typical consumption basket of each consumer is different. Look at the consumption basket of the low income group, high income group, and middle income group. So if you are considering whatever the product in the high income group is typically considered as inferior, that may not be inferior for the middle income group, and whatever you consider as the inferior for the middle income group, that may not be inferior for the low income group. Let me give you one more example. Till the time you are not buying a bike, you travel by public transport. Public transport is a normal goods for you. The moment you buy a two-wheeler, you buy a bike, then at that point of time, your public transport becomes inferior, because now you can afford to buy a bike of your own and you can travel. The moment you buy a four-wheeler, you'll find that your bike has become inferior, because with the increase in the income, you'll find that this is the inferior product. So there are two ways we understand the inferior. One through the income, and second through the price of the product. And the example of what you have taken in case of the inferiority is one specific example, which is in the case of a given good, that is always price sensitive. Based on the price, we are identifying that as the inferior good. Then one question is about the exam pattern. Exam pattern would be objective. It is not subjective. Exam pattern would be fully objective. Then I think there are a few questions on assignment 3. So assignment 3, question number 2, law of supply related to market economy. I am not agree to a point mentioned in the discussion group. So assignment 3, question number 2 is that, is it about the selling price? The question, is it about the selling price? If the market has a shortage that persists, economics should look for price. This is what the question. Can you be specific about which question you are talking about? Okay. So I think here we are not talking about law of supply. Here the idea is that what is selling price? Selling price is that whatever the maximum legal price what you can charge for a product, right? If your selling price is above the equilibrium price, typically it will not be applicable or it will have no value, because in the equilibrium price, the market clearing happens, because at the equilibrium price, it is agreed to the supplier and it is agreed to the buyer. Anything over and above equilibrium price, which is maximum, possibly that will have no influence because the market clearing happens at the equilibrium price. But the selling price, if it is below the equilibrium price, then the changes in the demand and supply exist. So now there is already a shortage in the market. So this question says that there is always a shortage that persists in the market. Now, what should be the selling price? At that point of time, if you say that your selling price is over and above the equilibrium price, possibly it will not be able to solve the problem in the market in the shortage. But if the selling price is below the equilibrium price, you will find few of the consumers, they will go out of the market, because if the price is more than the price what they're paying now, there is always a shortage because the demand is more. So if there is a price which is more than the current price but less than the equilibrium price, you'll find few of the consumers, they're going out of the market, and there will be some adjustment will happen because demand will decrease and supply will also increase, because with the increase in the price, supply will increase. You'll find that possibly you reach to the equilibrium point again. So the correct answer over here is that the selling price will be fixed below equilibrium price. That will lead to the adjustment in the market price. So hope I have been able to clear your doubt, but still if you feel that few specific point what you need to clarify, you can put it in the dashboard and I'll take care of it. We'll try to give an explanation over that. There's a question from Rani. I think I've already explained question number 2. This is question number 2 from week 3. But if you have still some doubt, then you can raise this question again in the dashboard. We'll take care of it. So there is one question, and what do we mean by coordinate equilibrium? I think this will talk about when we discuss the oligopoly market, because before that we'll not be able to understand the different behavior what the firms they show in the market. So this will discuss when we'll talk about the oligopoly market. The next question is that how various types of elasticity affects the consumer behavior. Okay, so what we discuss in the context of elasticity of demand, we have discussed price elasticity of demand and how price elasticity of demand is being applied or how in the decision making. So here the example is that let's say what we try to capture through the price elasticity of demand, we try to capture what is the exact magnitude of change in the quantity demanded whenever there is a change in the price, right? So whenever you think of changing the price, the decision point over here is that what would be the impact on the quantity demanded. So whatever the value of the price elasticity of demand we get, based on that, we assess that whether we should increase the price or we should not increase the price. Because with the increasing in the price, if you find that the quantity demanded is changing drastically, it may not be profitable for the producer to increase the price. So the knowledge of price elasticity of demand typically will find that that how it can be used for the decision making, and in the specific context, how whether we should increase the price or whether we should decrease the price. With respect to income elasticity of demand, we identify based on the income elasticity of demand, what is the types of good, right? So suppose if we are spending more than whatever the proportionate change in our income, typically we categorize those expenditure or those expenses as the luxury goods. Suppose we find that we are just spending more as proportion to change in the income, these are all semi-luxury goods, or typically these are the goods which are used for our comfort. And suppose we are spending the income less than the change in the income, these are all called as the normal goods and also the inferior goods. Because with the increase in the income, the typical example over here is that with the increase in the income, we do not eat more of rice or more of roti. These are all normal goods, right? What we do with the increase in the income, we prefer to get into a new brand of rice or a better brand of the wheat, because we want to eat something good with the increase in the income. So based on this, whatever the proportionate change in the income and how the quantity demanded is getting affected, that is through the income elasticity of demand. Cross price elasticity of demand, this application with respect to again help with the producers to understand that how, if the price of the substitute goods are changing or price of the complementary goods are changing, how it is going to affect the quantity demanded of these goods, what we're discussing. And advertising elasticity of demand, to understand how much we should spend on advertisement. If you are spending more, whether that is giving a resultant increase on quantity demanded, or if you are spending less, still we are able to manage that, whatever we are increasing, we are thinking of that. Here, this reminds me that there is a question on advertising elasticity of demand. Let me just try to find out. There is one question on advertisement elasticity of demand. Let me see if I can find out. Okay, let me. I think Namita, can you just type that question in the chat box about the advertising elasticity of demand? Okay, so yes. So the question is say that please explain in detail why does advertising elasticity of sales decreases when sales increases? And okay, so the question is here that there is a advertising elasticity of sales decreases when sales increases. I think here you need to brush up your context again, that it is not that advertising sales decreases when the sales increases, right? Advertising elasticity. Now, what is advertising elasticity? Whenever there is an increase in the advertisement expenditure, what is the resultant impact on the quantity demanded? So if the value of advertisement elasticity is 0, it means it has no impact on the increase in the demand. If the value of advertising elasticity is inelastic, it means the change is the impact in the quantity demanded is very less. But if the advertisement elasticity, if the value is high or if it is elastic, then you'll find that the impact on the increase in the demand is more. So ideally, when the advertisement elasticity is inelastic, the sales will not increase more. If it is elastic, we find that sales will increase more. So please go through this concept again, and if you're still getting some doubts, post it in the dashboard. We'll try to do this. Now, the second question over here is that how each population is not determinant of consumer demand. I think number of consumer is one of the factors which decides the demand. So the moment we say the number of consumers, that is the representative of population in the factors influencing demand. So population is considered because more number of consumer in the market, more is the demand. Less number of consumer in the market, less is the demand. Okay, cross elasticity of demand with examples. Okay. So what is cross elasticity of demand? Cross price. It is not cross elasticity, rather it is cross price elasticity of demand. It means, so there are two types of goods which influences the demand for the goods, right? And what are these two types of goods? One is substitute goods and second one is the complementary goods. Now, what is substitute goods? The substitute goods does the same kind of work or the same kind of satisfaction, same kind of service what these goods also get. The typical example of substitute goods is your tea, coffee, or you take any other example where you can pick one over the another. These are the substitute goods. Now, what is complementary goods? Complementary goods is those goods where the joint consumption cannot happen even if you are not consuming both the goods. The typical example is car, petrol, diesel. The example is tea and sugar, coffee and sugar. These are the example of the complementary goods. Now, what cross price elasticity of demand tries to do? Cross price elasticity of demand tries to capture that if the price of substitute goods increases, decreases, or price of complementary goods increases or decreases, what is the resultant increase in the quantity demanded? Let's say if the price of sugar increases, what is the impact on the quantity demanded of tea? Being price and sugar, they are the complementary goods. So ideally what will happen? If the price of sugar is increasing, and since you consider sugar as the necessary ingredients for your tea, you'll also prefer to consume less of tea. Let's say tea and coffee are substitute goods. If price of coffee increases, consumer will move to consuming more of tea. So based on the increase or decrease in the price, based on whatever the resultant changes in the quantity demanded of the specific goods, that is explained through the cross price elasticity of demand. Okay. Okay. Then the okay. So the other question what I'm getting in the chat box is that what is the difference between relative inelastic and elastic, perfectly inelastic and elastic? Okay. Let me give you an example. In a typical demand curve, or if you're not taking a demand curve also, we get a 5 degree of price elasticity of demand, price elasticity of demand. So in one extreme, we find perfectly elastic. In the second extreme, we find perfectly inelastic, right? What happens in perfectly elastic? Even if there is a very small change or very marginal change or very negligible change in the price, if the quantity demanded is changing largely, you call them as the perfectly elastic. Here the elasticity value take the value of infinite. If there is changes in the price, still the quantity demanded is not changing, we call them as the perfectly inelastic, because demand is perfectly inelastic. Whatever may be the change in the price, the quantity demanded is not going to change. Now, what is relatively inelastic? In the relatively inelastic, we are not saying that it will not change. We are saying that if 2% increase in price, bringing down the quantity demanded by 1%, it means what? The percentage change in P is more than percentage change in Q. It means the proportionate by which the price is changing, quantity demanded is changing, then less than proportionate. That's why it is relatively inelastic. But let's say if the price is increases by 2% and your quantity demanded is increases by 4%, in this case, the proportionate change in the quantity demanded is less than proportionate change in the price. So this is relatively elastic. So perfectly is the extreme form of the elasticity, both in case of inelastic and elastic. But when you get into the relative and elastic and relative inelastic, in this case, we typically check whether the proportionate change in the P is more than proportionate change in the Q. If the proportionate change in the P is greater than proportionate change in the Q, then it is relatively inelastic. and the proportionate change in the P is less than proportionate change in the Q, it is relatively elastic. Then the next question is that if a good is normal, then a decrease in the price will cause the substitution effect that is positive, income effect that is positive, then positive and okay. Now what happens when we get a substitution effect? We get the substitution effect whenever there is a change in the price, right? So let's say price decreases over here. So as I have taught you in the course also, any change in the price, any change in the price will have two effects. One is the income effect and second one is the substitution effect. What is income effect? Because the price changes, our income remain constant, our nominal income remain constant, but our purchasing power increases, right? So what will happen over here? Decrease in prices happened. If the decrease in the prices happened, that means the purchasing power of the consumer has increased. With the increase in the purchasing power, what will happen to our income effect? Increase in the income will consume more of the quantity demanded. So our income effect would be positive. And what will happen to our substitution effect? It will be also positive because we do not have to do any adjustment. With the decrease in the price, we can buy now more of goods in the combination. So our substitution effect will be positive because we will have a higher quantity of goods in the consumption basket. So because of decrease in the price, since our real purchasing power has increased, we'll find that our income effect is positive and also substitution effect is positive. Then the other question what I am getting is, I have not been able to understand some of the calculation derivative in the recorded class in this on the app. So can you be specific about the time and also which lecture, which derivative? If you can post that in the dashboard, my TAs, they will try to give you a better understanding of that. Otherwise, we can just also post with the steps what are being considered for the derivatives for your understanding. Okay, Arun, there is a question from Arun. I'm not been able to attend the previous classes. How will you get the notes? The transcripts, the notes have been already uploaded in your dashboard, and the link will be also given. So you can take the notes from there, whatever the session you have missed. And then you can go through that. And if you're finding some difficulty, then you can post the question in the dashboard. Which one is question number 9? Namita, can you post it? Okay. So question number 9, I think this is a question from Divya. So question number, if the price elasticity of demand for a firm output is elastic, then the firm's, what would be the firm's marginal revenue, right? So if it is elastic, let's understand what is our total revenue. Total revenue is P and Q, right? Now, what would be the marginal revenue? When we take the first order derivative of our total revenue, then we get our marginal revenue. So the question here asked is that what would be the effect on the marginal revenue when the price elasticity or demand for a firm's output is elastic? So if the demand is elastic, now how it will change the quantity demanded? Elastic. It means if there is a small change in the price, that will lead to a bigger change in the quantity demanded. So considering demand is elastic, we'll find that quantity demanded will increase, and if the quantity demanded is increasing, our total revenue will also increase, because what is total revenue? Total revenue is P multiplied by Q. So if P multiplied by Q is the total revenue, and because of elastic, demand is elastic, if our Q is changing, our total revenue will also increase. And because of increase in the total revenue, our marginal revenue will also increase. And then we'll find that we'll find that our total revenue will increase, and along with that, our marginal revenue will increase. But here we need to know that which effect will dominate, whether the Q effect will dominate or whether the P effect will dominate. Because since it is elastic, always the Q effect will dominate. If the price changing, right, it is increasing, and along with that your total revenue is increasing and your marginal revenue is positive. So I think here we need to change our, I think the answer did you get the suggested answer over here? I think we need to just relook the suggested answer, and I'll post the correct answer over here, that what would be the correct answer of this question number 9. I need to relook this suggested answers given over here. Okay, the options, and then I'll post the suggested answer. Namita, please make a note. We need to post the correct answer for this question. Okay. This is from Arun Gokul. You need to watch all this video from the beginning, because if you look at in each lecture, typically we try to incorporate the concept what we have learned in the previous chapter. So you need to know from the beginning what are the different concepts are being taught, and then you start. Because if you're joining in week 4, then mostly we are kind of done with the existing concept, and also the basics of demand, supply, market equilibrium, then the price control, taxes. So take out some time, try to watch these 3. Otherwise, for the later part, it would be difficult to understand these concepts. Okay. Savitri, the question is, ma'am, in the substitution effect, real income can be changed? Substitution effect, real income will not change in the substitution effect. Because of change in the real income, the substitution effect will take place. Let me give you an example, small example. So suppose every day you spend 100 rupees on your pocket money, right? You get pocket money as 100 rupees and you spend 100 rupees, right? So mostly how do you spend your pocket money? Let's say that you take some snacks, you drink few cup of coffee, right? And based on this 100 rupees, you adjust that how many cup of coffee you take, or how many, what kind of snacks you pick on a daily basis, right? The moment there is a decrease in the price of coffee, Now, how much you have the purchasing power? Earlier, the purchasing power is equivalent to 100 rupees, right? Because the prices you have, you know that the price of coffee is this much, price of snacks is this much, right? Now, suppose the price of coffee decreases, it's not that the value of 100 rupees will be 120, but with the 100 rupees, you can, what you are able to purchase equivalent to 100 rupees, now you can purchase more with that because the price of coffee has decreased. So this becomes the price effect because in decrease in the price of coffee, your purchasing power has increased. This is because of price effect. When we say that purchasing power has increased, this brings the concept of the income effect because now your real purchasing power or the real income is more than 100 because the price of coffee has decreased. Now, how it will translate into substitution effect? Let's say earlier you used to take 2 times of snacks and 3 times of coffee. Now price of coffee has decreased, so you can still maintain 3 cup of coffee snacks, or you can add one more additional snacks. So now what would be your consumption quantity? 3 cup of coffee and 3 times snacks. And this has happened. The substitution moved from 2 unit of snacks to 3 unit of coffee to 3 unit of snacks to 3 unit of coffee. This is what the substitution effect. Okay, Niharika, this book is good. You can just see the syllabus, and based on that, if you are finding any chapters or any concept what is being discussed, if you are not finding in the book, you just put it in the dashboard. We'll try to map these concepts into the books chapter, and I'll let you know which one to go through. Then question number 2 is already explained. And then okay, so these are your difficulty in lecture 5 part 1, part 2, lecture 6 part 2. Okay, so we'll try. Can you be more specific on what were the difficulty points? Is there the steps you need more steps, or you need what kind of understanding? Accordingly, we'll try to give you this understanding. Okay. Arun, how will I get missed classes? In which app I'll get the missed class? This I need to check with the NPTEL office. That typically when you miss classes, how you get access to the video. So Rice, just make a note of this point and write to NPTEL office if they can make him available about the previous lectures. Arun Gokul, if you have not submitted, try to submit as early as possible, because do not miss any assignment, because mostly you will find that your assignment are part of the evaluation, and if you are getting good marks in some assignment, it should get counted, right? So just check if you can submit it again, or you should just submit it as a, because try to not to miss anything. Question number 6. Which one is question number 6? Okay. So the question is about the following part of TU curve shows zero marginal utility, decreasing marginal utility, increasing marginal utility, negative marginal utility. So Divya, it will be negative marginal utility because the total curve when it is reaches maximum, our marginal utility, total utility curve when it is reaches maximum, our marginal utility is 0. So beyond that, and when total utility decreases, when it reaches the maximum. So when total utility is maximum, marginal utility is 0. But beyond that, when total utility decreases, then marginal utility become negative because after 0, there is nothing called decreasing. It is mostly we get into the negative segment. So there is one correction what I'm getting from Rice. You cannot give the assignment one because the answers are already been public. So possibly you should try to submit other assignments, and do not miss any assignments. Even if you're not able to solve everything, you should always give a try to this. Okay, Niharika, just put all your question in the dashboard. I'll take little bit time and I'll try to explain this thing in the through more explanation about the derivative of the various function and optimization and regression techniques. Yes, exactly. So you are saying that T curve starts falling once utility decreases. Yes. So when total utility curve decreases, what will happen to the marginal utility? Total utility, if it is decreasing, then marginal utility will go beyond 0, right? So if you are going beyond 0, then it will be negative. It will not decrease. Rather, marginal utility will decrease when total utility increases at the decreasing rate. What is marginal utility? The change in the total utility when we consume one more unit of goods, right? So till the time total utility is increasing at the increasing rate, or marginal utility is positive. When total utility reaches maximum, marginal utility is 0. And when your total utility decreases, our marginal utility would be negative. So Ashish, your question is with respect to dashboard or with respect to total utility and marginal utility? Uh, where is the dashboard to ask our question? Namita, can you just give them a pointer where they can ask their question? Yes. So they will just post it where you can post in the discussion forum.